Good afternoon and welcome to our first session of the NAC Retreat Week. Thanks for being with us. I'm Dan Borschke, NAC's Executive Vice President, at least for the next few months, and it's my honor and privilege to facilitate the next hour of programming. First of all, many thanks to our sponsors who, without their generosity, we just wouldn't be able to conduct this week's long educational experience. You'll be seeing in front of you some of the sponsors that we are very grateful for: Coca-Cola, Gold Medal, Hershey Chocolate, Mars Wrigley, Rico's Products, Load King, Pepsi, Vistar, ConAgra, Packaging Concepts, PCI, Promotion in Motion, Great Western Products, Colonel Seasons, Manel Popcorn, Odell's, Preferred Popcorn, and Scribner and Associates. Like many of our members, NAC is certainly experiencing financial distress during these challenging times, and we thank all our members for their support and engagement as we all journey through this once-in-a-century experience. If you'd like to assist the NAC education efforts, please visit the donate button at the NAC Retreat Week website page. Before we introduce this afternoon's session, please mark your calendars for tomorrow's session. Starting at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central tomorrow, we'll have a session on streaming versus in-theater viewing, where Dr. Radesh Palakthari, who is the Dean and Professor of the IHG Chair of Excellence at Kemmons Wilson School of Hospitality and Resort Management at the University of Memphis, as well as Larry Etter, who is our Director of Education, as well as the adjunct professor at Kemmons and at Senior Vice President at Melco Theaters. And then starting at 1 o'clock Eastern, which is 12 noon Central, we're going to have an interesting session on buyers and seller relationships. And Teresa Boyson from Colonel Seasons and Kim Cook-Serrano from Galaxy Theaters will lead the discussion. And as you can see by the names that are up there, it's going to be a interesting, iconic discussion with both operators as well as suppliers. So that's tomorrow, starting at 10 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern, and then again at 1 o'clock Eastern, 12 noon. Don't forget, all these sessions are accessible via the same link that you used for today's session, with one exception. Wednesday afternoon, if you're joining us for the wine tasting event, there is a unique link for that. Hopefully you have that already. If not, please contact us. We'll be more than happy to share it. If you have any questions, please note the Q&A format down on the bottom of the page. Please type in your Q&A, your question, and we'll be more than happy to assist you in that regard. During our 49 phone calls earlier this year, I always gave you the registration numbers of these sessions. We are thrilled, excited, honored, proud to say that we have 360 registrants for today's event. Finally, each session will have a door prize, or 2 or 3 or 5, and Chris Dahman will be presenting those names later after we finish this session. So let's get moving. Today's session is something very special. We have 4 association executives with us who share how they are confronting the COVID-19 issues and how their members and associations are reacting. I hate to think the number of years of experience we have to comment this afternoon, but needless to say, they are expert at what they do. Joining us initially will be Brad Main, who's the CEO of IAVM Venue Managers, Carla Balaji from NAMA, our vendor friends, Jeff Morgan, Club Management Association, and then Todd Halstead, Independent Cinema Alliance. Let's start out with Brad. And Brad, welcome. Thank you for being with us, and thanks for spending a few minutes with us this afternoon.
Well, thanks for giving me the time, and Chris and Dan, having gone through this a couple weeks ago for our annual conference, I'm excited for you. You've got a great list of sessions that are coming up. Never fun to pivot and do something new and different, but I'm sure this is going to work quite well this week. And we all wish we were face to face, but we all know that the pandemic hasn't cooperated with us yet. So although it was great news today that we're a step closer to opening buildings, as we heard that Pfizer has had success And hopefully that's the road to recovery for many of us, the beginning of it. So thanks for having me. Chris, can you give me the next? I know many of you are probably not fully aware of who IVM is. We've been around for 96 years now. Of course, everyone has their mission and their vision. We do a lot of education, which I'll talk about briefly. But we're all about inspiring leaders, building expertise, and creating connections for life, as we all know that networking is great. Next. So we represent amphitheaters, arenas, convention centers, universities, stadiums, convention centers, universities, fairgrounds. We're really diverse. And pre-pandemic number, we're a professional association. So the individuals are become members, and we were at 7,200 professionals. And they basically represent about 1,200 venue organizations worldwide. Our largest number of members are mostly in North America, but we also have Australia, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia. The folks in Southeast Asia, for the most part, are Hong Kong, China, and some of the other countries. Next. So, we do a lot of face-to-face professional development. Our largest event is Venue Connect, which we had a couple weeks ago. Another one that's really big for us that's been around now for 33 years is our Venue Management School and the Graduate Institute. 350 professionals spend a full week. It's a first year, a second year, and then a graduate program. 19 topics to help individuals understand what it takes to manage a venue. And then, of course, we get into safety and security and front of house with the guest experience. We have a great program at Cornell University with Senior Executive Symposium, where professors from Cornell teach. But one of the things that we do, not only for our members, but life safety and security trainings. We get into situational awareness, live shooter training, de-escalation training, and the like. And we've done this for faith-based organizations, and we've actually done it for school districts in hopes of protecting the youth that go to our schools and the like. Next. So what's happened with our venues because of the pandemic? 95% of live events have been canceled. Now you might say, well, where are the 5% happening? It's a little bit of a mixture. As you know, it really is up to the local authorities as to who can open and how many people that they can bring in. That's part of it. The other thing is reimagining what those events might look like. Our research shows that in the live event ecosystem that 12 million people are out of work. As we all know, if there's no event happening, that whole ecosystem is out of work. So specific to our membership, if you take 2019 and versus 2020 during the pandemic, so basically beginning in March through to the end of October, our members have seen lost revenues averaging 78%, decrease in their operating budget of 42.4%. If you do the math, that's a problem, right? Full-time staff layoffs and furloughs are at 49%, but for our part-time employees, virtually all part-time staff are not working. So a lot of challenges there. If we could go to the next one. So our venues have been repurposed. That's one thing that we're proud of, is that, we really are a great resource to the communities that we serve. We have acted as hospitals, homeless shelters. We've been set up as testing sites. Most of those are drive-through sites. Logistics hubs. This is an interesting one. So distribution of PPP as well as first responders equipment. So if you think about it, being able to set up multiple locations within a community where when the ambulance takes care of somebody, they can come back to one of these hubs as opposed to having to go all the way back to their station. They can get disinfected with the help of epidemiologists that have helped us put together what those sanitation protocols are. The fact that our venues are larger than most facilities, that municipalities have begun using us for courts, council meetings, and other functions that they normally do because their municipal meeting spaces are smaller. And then here recently, not only have we been polling places, but we've also been getting reports back that they may not have been a polling place, but a lot of the counting of the votes have come to their venue, again, because they can set up in large areas and still be distanced as they should be with CDC guidelines. And some of the unique events, I won't get into the details, but our venues have, for example, our performing arts centers have been streaming events that they've hosted in the past, just to keep in contact with their customers, their constituents, so to speak. Obviously, you've seen on television for sports and the like, there's a lot of events that have happened in the past that are being played out and represented. Doing events outdoors. Now, we've heard that it's safer to be outdoors, so many of our venues have created small theaters and or amphitheaters and have begun hosting events. One of them that's been quite interesting is drive-in opportunities. Even our convention centers have been hosting live concerts as you sit in your car. Obviously, streaming old movies, bring the family out and enjoy, some time in your vehicle. One that caught my attention was here in Dallas, the American Airlines Center that I used to be involved with. Went with iHeartRadio and they went to one of the large haunted houses and they moved the haunted house into one of their parking garages. They created 2 different routes, one for families, one for adults. My daughter took her 3 children through it and said it was great and they really enjoyed it. So, there's been some unique opportunities that our venues have come out with and have created. Chris, if you could go to the next. As the association itself, we're at 7,100. And as you saw pre-pandemic, we were at 7,200. This one surprised me, frankly. I thought that we would have a large drop off because we do have a group membership where a venue can have 20 individuals belong to the association. And with everybody being furloughed or laid off, we thought that number would drop. But one of the things we did, if you drop down here, we did free webinars. We brought in some experts and had a lot of webinars. We were averaging 10 webinars a week. These were free. They were marketed to our members, but we allowed anybody to participate. And we knew we were taking a chance to do that. But what ended up happening is, as members dropped their membership because they're no longer in the industry, we actually had people who came to those free webinars who now have joined IVM because they saw the resources that we were offering and the work that we did. We'll talk a little bit more about some of those resources. The other thing we did is we heard a lot from our staff, or from the staffs of the venues. The people were really struggling from a mental health standpoint. So we turned to our foundation, and the foundation was able to put together monthly webinars specific to mental health. And we've been getting a lot of kudos for that from our members. And there's been some heartbreaking stories out there too that, just really an unfortunate situation that we've all been facing. And so we did everything we could to turn quickly and get that working well. And of course, our members are saying, we're stressed every single day, not just during the pandemic. So that will probably continue. And for the first time in 95 years, a couple of weeks ago, we did our annual conference virtually. So similar to what NAC is doing, we had to change the way that we presented. The thing that we found that was really a challenge for us was the networking. But what we ended up finding out, normally we all do surveys and figure out how we did and what we can do to fix things. And in the chat on every one of those sessions, there were quite a few people that were in this conference that were saying, I couldn't afford to pay for a face-to-face conference. I couldn't afford to travel. I couldn't afford to pay for the hotel. And so there's no question that that's one thing that we have learned is that virtual presentations are going to be something that's really going to be important to all of us as we move forward. Chris, if you could go to the next one for me. So the one big thing that we really worked on for our venues was creating a recovery guide. And you can go to ivm.org. Again, we're making this available to everybody. So anybody can go to our website, again, at iavm.org. You can search for the recovery guide, or you can use the link that's at the bottom here. And we released this during our annual conference a couple weeks ago. Chris, if you could give me the next one. So what we did is we reached out to the whole industry and said, we don't want this just to be a venue product. We want this to be an industry product. So we had 28 industry organizations that include regulatory agencies, for example, CDC, DHS, Infectious Disease Society of America, FEMA, American Red Cross, and said, hey, we really want some help. The other thing that we were fortunate is we actually had 35 industry executives. These were C-suite individuals that threw all of their resources to us to help us go through this. And that was a great learning experience. And another thing we learned in the pandemic is that many people are coming together and creating strength. And we put this together with the idea that it's all about building trust, because we know that individuals are not going to come back to live events unless they trust that it's going to be safe. So we focused on the staff in the venues, the contractors that work for us, obviously the attendees, and more recently, we've been putting a lot more information in for our local government authorities for our advocacy efforts. And many of our venues are coming together in each state and taking this information to the governor to try and get regulations set that will allow us to open earlier than later. And there are 19 disciplines and topics. They are created for the venue operators. But what we're finding out, for example, is that the meeting planners are asking for this information because they want to know when they go from venue to venue, are those guidelines going to be different? Are they, we're trying to standardize those. And you can see the list here of all the things that are, most of the things that are in there. I think I got 12 or 13 out of the 19 that are listed. And, we're really pleased with this work that has been accomplished. So we had the sports leagues, we had NCAA, meeting planners, and many of the regulatory agencies. Chris, if you could go to the next one, please. So specific to food and beverage, I will tell you that it's not comprehensive as it relates to food and beverage. But we did want to make sure that there was something in there. And this is, a 60,000 foot level look at it. Although I would suggest anybody that is interested to go ahead and go in and download these guidelines because it'll give you a better idea of what the venues are dealing with overall, which, as you can imagine, is quite a bit. But basically, we created it to follow the FDA's best practices. We also tapped into NRA for their opening practices and their Serve Safe guidelines. There are links in there to go to those documents, as well as trying to get all of our members to reach out and find out what the federal and local requirements were going to be for the guidelines. And the things that it touches on is, again, as it relates to food and beverage, is staff screenings, PPE, and other equipment, strategic disinfecting. One of the things that we found is another association, the Sanitation Association, has a biohazard cleaning program and accreditation. So we partnered with them and we brought what's called GBAC Star to our membership. We've gotten a great adoption by our venues working with that. And then just the common sense items that many of our venues and food and beverage providers are having to deal with: no self-serve stations, individual packaging, refraining from multi-use eatery, and going to touchless and cashless point of sale systems. So if you could go to the next one for me, Chris. So what did IVM learn? I think these are the biggest things. We have 21 board members that represent pretty much all of the diverse membership that we have. So these are region directors. These are sector directors. Many of them are the professional development programs that we put together. And we also have 33 management committees. I will tell you, with the small staff that we have, we couldn't do it without these committees. These committees range anywhere from 12 individuals to 33 individuals for the largest. And for example, our annual conference is put on by volunteers. Staff is there to help them, but it's really created by our members. And what we found out after everyone commiserated and wondering what to do and how to deal with things, we made sure that everything we brought forward was upbeat, offered hope. We were strategic, and I'll talk about that in the fourth item here. Communication was of utmost importance, and again, involving as many people as you can offered us a lot of resolve, acceptance, and a lot more people paying attention. And many of these management committees have people that make most of the committee meetings, but we frankly have been pretty close to 100% on these committee meetings because of the work, the important work that they've been doing. And of course, we had no playbook to follow. So that's another thing, is we are creating and documenting everything. We're documenting both what was good and what was bad. We're putting what was good into the playbook, and what was bad, we're keeping on hand to remind us of things that we tried and didn't work. We have created 7 coalitions, again, because we're diverse. And in those coalitions, everything from creating the COVID-19 responses to advocacy work to communications to the general public. And, it's interesting, in the live concert industry, there are certain entities that don't talk to one another because they're competitive. Fact of the matter is, we had many competitive organizations come together and say, this is bigger than all of us. Well, let's figure this out. So that was really a great learning for us. And of course, the other thing is you have to be nimble. You have to change your strategies. We found that the short term, everyday things were changing, and you had to make changes on a daily basis. Midterm, looking to the future of what's coming, what do we have to be prepared for? And right now we have 2 different committees that we've created now that are looking at the long term. How do we get there? What's it going to look like? What can we do? So, in a nutshell, that's my presentation, and my apologies. I've got a board meeting I've got to get to, but I'm not sure, Chris, are you going to let them ask me questions before I drop off? Because I know you're going to let them do that later on.
They can ask questions via the Q&A function. However, we don't have any questions right now, Brad.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. I wish I could stay. Dan and Chris know I tried to get out of this appointment. They basically are my boss and said, no, you'll be on the call because you know more about it than we do, which I think is a good sign, right?
Exactly. Well, Brad, since this is being recorded, if there are any questions or comments made, we will certainly make sure our people will get the answers. So thank you.
I was going to say, and I'll be happy to do those answers and get them back to you. So
great. Thank you.
Good luck to you all. Thank you.
Well, next up is our good friend Carla Bellaggi from NAMA, our vending friends. And Carla, thanks for being with us. And we look forward to hearing what's happening at NAMA.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, everyone. Really pleased to be here. I will take a slightly different tack because we have some very recent research, both about the industry and also we've been doing some strategic planning concurrent with the ambiguity that the pandemic brought. So what I thought I might do is bring out some of the highlights of that research about how the pandemic has affected our industry, because there is a lot of crossover, at least in our supply chain, with many of NAC's members. So hopefully you'll get a line of sight into our channel, but also the broader food and beverage industry that we collectively serve and how NAMA's been trying to grapple and feel its way along. So Chris, if you would push me forward. For those of you who don't know who is NAMA, in our origins, we're 84 years old, but we don't look it. We were known as the National Automatic Merchandising Association, which was and remains in large part vending. But we have a few other tricks up our sleeve over the years. We have a supply chain membership, which includes CPG companies, again, many of which, as I said, serve both of our spaces, equipment manufacturers, brokers, distributors. But at the end of our supply chain, we have service operators. And our primary marketplace, throw what word you will at it. On-premise, yes. Workplace, predominantly, but not exclusively. And B2B2C, meaning that our members serve the client site as well as the people who are on site, whether that be children at school or inmates in a penitentiary or any type of workforce, manufacturing, white collar, A to Z, call center, you name it. Wherever people are for large portions of their day, we deliver food and beverage and other things to them. We have 4 main business channels. We begun to chunk them into 2 buckets: unattended retail, which is of course vending, and then micro markets, which are I like to tell Amazon that we invented it because we did. We don't seek to say that we do it as well perhaps as they do, but they are unattended break room markets where an employee or even a consumer can walk in and shop, pick things right off the shelf, and pay for it at an unattended kiosk. The other half of the bucket, the B2C piece, is what employers provide or school districts or whomever provide to their clients. And those tend to be free and benefit oriented. You can think of the most basic things like coffee, tea, and water. But increasingly, as it's become a competitive benefit, it can be kombucha, it can be nitrogen infused cold brew on tap, it can be fruit for public health reasons, it can be any variety of things. But those are primarily and historically the services our members have provided. And as consumer tastes and demands and employee tastes and demands have evolved, so has the technology and the experience we have sought to provide. And a few years ago, we stepped away from calling ourselves vending and micro markets and OCS and everything how we do it. And we labeled ourselves, we've branded ourselves convenience services, which is we deliver convenience to where you are, and we make it convenient for you to get what you want, where you are, whenever you want it. So we are convenience services. Chris, push me forward. So I have some very heartening information about what we looked like in January. Every 2 years, NAMA does an economic impact study, and in the off year, we do a census. So I've got a little bit of data from both, but the most current, which was published in January 2020, is our economic impact. So if you would move me forward, let's take a look at how our industry was performing before COVID. Our annual economic output, $31 billion across those 4 business channels. about 160,000 jobs nationally. There is some international, but this is predominantly focused on the US market. $9.4 billion in wages. And the other side of that coin, almost $3.6 billion worth of taxes. So a not insignificant industry, if you think about where we are and what we do, pretty much everywhere, every day. Chris, push me forward. I'm going to show you a heat map of how this employment paces out across the country. So if you look at the dark spots, California, Texas, Pennsylvania, it doesn't seem like there are so many of those. And that is really just based on employment density. New York is darker than it might appear. But what you can extrapolate from this is that the majority of this industry is small business serving small business. There are large operators. There are obviously large companies, particularly in the Pacific Northwest and in the metropolitan areas, but that ultimately we are a vast network of small companies serving small companies and from Americans from every walk of life and every type of business. And when you see the COVID impact on that, you will understand why how these peaks and troughs relate to this heat map. So move me forward one more, please. Here's an important statistic. In 3 years, it was really 2, but if we're reaching all the way back to when the last time we did our census to now, today, which is the economic impact, convenience services grew from $26 billion to $31 billion over the 24 to 36 months. It's a fairly healthy growth rate. What was driving that type of growth in this channel? Well, it's a couple of things. It's a lot of things, but I guess the top 3 would be sales per consumer growth was up 23%. So consumers were buying more, and they were buying more because they could. It wasn't just a vending machine in a workplace. It was an entire marketplace in a workplace. We were providing more of what they wanted. So we had a greater share of their wallet. We had a greater share of their day parts, and we had more of it, more options and more availability in the places that they were. We expanded into non-consumable items. So you can think about earbuds. You can think about, we're all thinking about hand sanitizer. Any take-home products of a variety of non-consumables, as well as broader food options. And so many of our members have commissaries and catering companies. Some are in full line food service, depending upon the size of the company. If you think of a large conglomerate like Compass, right? They have their own coffee, they have their own food service, they have dining, they have vending, they have micro markets. They pretty much have it all. So they can pull any lever, right? So all these different types of food items were coming into the workplace, and same ticket sales were increasing. So you had different items, more purchases, higher price points, greater share of market, and greater share of consumer wallet. And as we began introducing these innovations, technology was enhancing these consumer experiences. So they could pre-order, they could order from, and again, innovation will breed competition. Operators began figuring out how to pre-order and to pre-kit and to customize the kinds of things that were coming into the workplace. You could order off your app. You could preload on your employee card. We have loyalty. The greater convenience, the greater unattended experience, the greater frictionless experience, the greater variety of product, the higher value. This was all driving convenience services and that growth over 3 years. So it feels pretty good, right? Everybody's pretty happy. We're strapping along. Yeah. And then, would you move me forward, Chris? Oh, Well, let me just put another bow on it. I was really building you up there, right? We were growing and diversified. No, it's okay. It's okay. Because there might be something it's possible. There's a couple statistics in here that might be worth mentioning. We were growing and diversifying. And here's something that may or may not be of interest. The conversion of traditional vending customers to other sales and service platforms. So what that means is that even vending, which was on average about 71 to 73% of, let's say, 31 billion, was on the decline. And it was on the decline because it was becoming and vending, not just vending. And what I mean is that our client sites were going up from vending into micro markets and a hybrid type of food service, and down from full line food service and dining. And this sweet spot in the middle is what was driving that. Hence micro markets, which were doubling their growth rates every 2 years. OCS and pantry was our steady Eddie at 7% on a biennial average. And consumers were looking for better for you products, and food to desktop delivery. And we were seeking to fill that space out of our commissaries. So the demand was so good for better for you that in October 2019, the convenience services industry made a commitment to improving public health by increasing the availability of better for you products in vending. Vending had long been vilified by public health groups as selling nothing but junk food. And we coalesced as an industry, product manufacturers and everyone along the way, to increasing the availability of better for you products in the workplace and in, frankly, every place that we serve by 33%, not a not insignificant amount over 3 years. So now that I've built you up, let me drop the hammer. Yeah. Now, so you're probably going to look at these statistics and for a minute and say, well, gosh, that doesn't look so bad. Well, I have to start by saying that these averages that you're seeing, now these are outputs by business line of service operators, but you can infer that anything that came through the supply chain is going out through that service operator. This is an average from March, let's say, or a high water mark in January through September or October. So these have been smoothed out a great deal over and averaged over those months. Vending on average across all types of operators and across all those months, down 16%. Micro markets, equal measure. Coffee and pantry services, 50%. Now, if you think for a minute about the marketplace that we serve, what happened when the pandemic hit? Just like theaters, office buildings went dark. And so it was very interesting to see how our industry was affected. At the peak of it, a coffee service and pantry operator in the Pacific Northwest who serves a campus like Google was completely dark and is only operating at 20% today. Conversely, small, more rural communities, vendors who are working in small, more rural communities have a diverse business portfolio and all different types of business lines had a more steady pace. They never really dropped below 50%. Cities where there were health crises like New York, suddenly vending became a darling because it was unattended, reasonably contactless with a glove, and 24/7. Any companies that were able to serve first line responders, emergency care, firehouses, you name it, anything that was needed to run fared fairly well. Pantry was dead on arrival. So it really depended upon where you were, what your client portfolio was like, and what your business lines were as to how you were performing. On average, today, the industry is at about 70% of its economic outputs. Some people are at 100 and others, as I mentioned, are still back at 20. And I would posit that large office buildings and white collar workers with a remote workplace are going to be the ones that are going to be the trailers. There's no surprise there. So what did we do? Well, we pivoted. We started selling PPE. We started taking the meals out of our commissary and delivering them to schools or homes or to homeless shelters or to places that where people needed food or to hospitals. We did deep cleaning of our warehouses. We worked very hard. We consolidated routes. We perhaps got rid of clients who weren't good return on investment and they weren't operating anyway. We kept the highest value clients and we found a way to solve their problems. I have to say that by and large, the industry has survived many economic downturns. They have a playbook. They know how to do it. They have the cash to operate. And that's what they did. They know where to economize and how to economize. And where they're placing their bets for the future are really on the things not so vastly different than what they were doing before. But this really gave them the opportunity to reflect and tune up on what they were doing and what marketplaces, where their vulnerabilities were, really, is what it surfaced. I would say there's a level of optimism in the industry about the future, and that they see opportunity, despite the fact that their workplaces may look very different. People may be working in shifts. There may be different amounts of people there for different amounts of the day. They are adapting. So what did NAMA do? And how was NAMA affected? Push me forward, Chris. So like our members, our business lines were sort of greatly skewed as well. All of our live events were canceled. Our largest revenue stream and our convention, which takes place each spring in Nashville. And of course, we can't get back to Nashville for many, many years because it's a very popular place, was canceled in May. Our fly-in in July was canceled, which is also a great networking event. And we canceled our second largest event in November, which was in Florida, for all the reasons that I don't need to explain. Fortunately for us, we were well protected by insurance, which allowed us to keep delivering essential services to our members. But what was always important but became vital were some of our other responses. We started by actively listening. And what I mean is I called hundreds of operators, as did my staff, because it was very important to us to keep our fingers on the pulse of what was happening with the community. We wanted them to be able to listen to each other. We formed town halls. We had conversations. We connected people with people for problem solving, commiseration, and just listening to one another, because there was a sense that if we knew what was happening there, we had a better sense of what was happening everywhere. We have been hosting myriad, just like IABM, myriad education and information sessions about a host of topics: reopening guidelines, stay opening guidelines, government compliance, safety, you name it, week after week after week. And they're better attended than they would have, I think, probably ever been. And I'm hoping that that sustains, that they've seen the value of participating in these community activities. And we intend to keep pumping them out at the same rate. So hopefully they will have the same level of uptake. As far as connecting members, you might see that little graphic at the bottom. It says July 2020. In lieu of a live event, we collected and distributed sample boxes. There's a lot of product in the system that gets debuted at our spring event. We found a way to collect all that product, put it into a box, ship it to operators, and connect businesses and buyers in an asynchronous environment. I think we're on our third round of sample boxes right now. And last but not least, proactive advocacy. Our government relations team sprung into action and hasn't stopped spinning yet. And if you would advance me to the next slide, I'll just give you a little bit of a sense of what we had going on. I think there should be one more in there. Click me back one. No? All right. Didn't make the final cut. So the first thing we did was to have convenient services declared essential by the federal government, which meant that it could continue to operate as an industry in the midst of a lockdown. that allowed us to serve hospitals, first responders, fire stations, and every other type of business that had to operate. It allowed us to supply food. It allowed us to supply PPE and keep businesses open and keep money flowing. We helped our members apply for PPE, apply for and secure PPP and EIDL loans. How many acronyms are there? As many as I'm sure many of you did. And that was very, very welcome relief, particularly to some of those very, very small guys who didn't have the same kind of market that some of the others did. We interfaced with all 50 governor's offices, resolving a lot of barriers to keep these operators operating and the industry open. As you can imagine, 50 governors, 50 approaches, 50 answers, and it goes down to the municipal level as well. We had to intervene directly in Pennsylvania and in New York because they were saying that vending and coffee service was, and to closing down break rooms. And believe me, if this is the only place that somebody in a hospital is getting sustenance, it had to remain open. So those are the types of things that NAMA did.
Oops. Carla, you're muted.
How did that happen? Did you give me the hook? I leaned the wrong way. I leaned on my space bar. Those are you can tell me where I left off, but you're getting the gist of it. These are the kinds of things that NAMA did to keep our industry going strong. We continue to do that, advocating for the next round of stimulus and economic relief, a prioritization around vaccine to keep our essential workforce going, and kind of you name it. What I will close with is what we have heard from our industry and from those outside our industry looking in about what the future might hold. The belief is that traditional food service will continue to be displaced for the foreseeable future, meaning dining. And that the space that needs to be filled is with safely delivered, safely wrapped, safely whatever, that safety will remain paramount among consumers for the foreseeable future. That the virtual workplace will remain and how we serve that will change. That we will be addressing consumer needs at and away from work. And the better we can do that, the better we will meet their needs, the better level of product and service that we'll be able to deliver. More balance between serving the business and the end consumer. The consumer is going to reign supreme. They're going to prioritize safety, convenience, and choice. They've been having stuff delivered to their front door by an entirely new network. So it's ours to figure out how to match or capitalize or partner on that. App technology and contactless equipment, safety, don't touch me, don't convey germs, will continue to accelerate rapidly. None of this is new. It's just what kind of pace is it going to keep? And the safe, frictionless, consumer custom delivery of food and beverage is the winning equation.
Thank you, Carla. We miss you in Chicago, but you had to do what you had to do.
We had to come here to Washington to shake a few chains.
That's right. Well, thank you. Thanks for being with us. When Jeff took his position at the Club Management Association, I must admit, a lot of us had association envy. He has golf clubs, he has food, he has beverages. It's almost as good as going to the movie theaters. But we're thrilled to have you with us. And Jeff, why don't you tell us what's going on with your organization?
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm Jeff Morgan. I'm with the Club Management Association of America. We are a 92-plus-year-old association. Let's see, and you can see my screen, correct? Yes.
Yes.
So we were founded in 1927. We focus on club management professionals. Our members are mostly in the U.S., although we touch 27 countries with our education programs. And we have members on every continent except Antarctica, which I keep looking for that club on Antarctica. So our members manage country clubs, golf clubs, city clubs, athletic clubs, faculty, yacht, town, beach, military clubs. You can think of clubs, and most of the time when we think of clubs, we think of these awesome places like this is Masters Week, so Augusta National, Union League Club in Philadelphia, or as a nod to you, Dan, the Chicago Yacht Club in Chicago. So that is what we think of when we think of private clubs or member-based clubs. But that is true, but we really are fun. We are great food and those resort-style amenities in our hometown and all these awesome things. We are not in the golf or tennis or swimming business. We are in the experience business. We create exceptional experiences for a community of members who live an active and healthy lifestyle, that love resort-style amenities in their hometown, expect excellent food, want to be cared for in an environment that makes them feel special. So that is really what we do. We have been dealing with, for some time, all this change in the world that's going on, and we have these 36 areas of change that we've been talking about that cover the big 6 areas are demographics and workforce, societal trends, economic trends, trends in actual club components and technology. We have been dealing with that and trying to get our arms around that in all our clubs, and the association has been helping doing that. It was a lot to deal with, a lot to manage, and then along came COVID and a pandemic. Oh my goodness. The world closed. We closed for a short time. We saw, restaurants closing en masse. We saw gyms closing. In our own world, weddings and other things were being canceled. So we pivoted just like everybody else and said, are we going to let this world come and do something to us, or are we going to take the bull by the horns and create our own destiny? And that really is what we did with the association at the core of that. We created a COVID center on our website that is actually open to the public and started putting resources up. We started, as Carla mentioned, leveraging that community. We were doing 1 to 2 webinars a day with the community, talking about how we can come out of this dark period and how we can reopen. We put together what we called a reopening guide for a club post-COVID. It was actually a reopening guide amidst COVID because we're still dealing with COVID. But within a couple months, while some of our clubs closed completely for a time, most of us pivoted our food operation to takeout. We mobilized pretty much all our industries, with golf being a big one, where the PGA and all the USGA and all the golf entities came together, and we went out and started saying and showing how safe it is to play golf outside. And we got one by one, using our grassroots connections, the states to reopen golf. At the worst time, we were 50% of our golf courses were closed in the United States. They are now reopened. Golf has been booming. We were down 17% in rounds. So a round of golf are 18 holes, and that's how we measure golf. So we were down 17% nationally on both public and private courses. We are now looking to probably be up 8% for the year in rounds. Golf has been going through the roof, as has been tennis, as has been swimming. Our clubs adapted very quickly. And what I want to show you in my short time here is some of the ways we've changed. We've put our creativity to work, and we've gone into overdrive. So from a food standpoint, Carla just spent a bunch of time talking about takeout food. We pivoted very quickly to takeout food, but it went beyond takeout food. Many of us have food trucks that allow us to do special events on our club grounds. We started making food out of those food trucks, and members would drive up and pick up that food. Food in itself, we are considered a safe haven for our members. So we not only served prepared food, we also started serving meat and other staples, where if somebody wanted to pick up a half slab of smoked ribs and baked beans, and whether it raw or cooked, they could do that. For things like Easter, where it's a big business with clubs, we created prepackaged goodie bags of food and rolls and all the various trimmings, dessert and things for a family. And the club would order that and then come by and pick it up. And so the club really turned into that safe food for food that you're not buying from the grocery store. So think of this again from an experience standpoint. We wanted to create exceptional experiences for our members with food, even though we were in COVID and doing takeout. But it evolved very quickly because people needed staples. Whether that was toilet paper, we all remember when toilet paper was scarce. We could supply that. We could supply cleaning supplies. And so we became the grocery store. You fill out your list, tell us what you want, and away it goes. And it's there for you to pick up. We also started going down the path of, let's make ice cream and sell special ice cream that's club ice cream. Let's do canned goods. And so clubs had just gone wild with special things. Again, this food experience to share with members and to provide to members. We then moved out of the food and into how do we create online experiences. So we look at every piece of our club, from golf tips and videos on golf. A lot of our clubs use what's called flip books, where you can embed videos into a book-like product that you send to the members. And you open it up and it might be news on the club. It might be training with the fitness professionals. It may be helping you from a golf standpoint. We have lots of people that know a lot of things about grass and flowers. And so a horticulturalist or a superintendent might share tips with you on how to do gardening because you're probably spending a lot more time at home. We had activities for the kids, from art to all sorts of things to do. So we became very quickly that place that members were looking at to be entertained while they were in quarantine. And really this has continued on through the summer as it's gotten warmer and people have gotten outdoors. We continue with how do we push that creativity even further? Well, how about wine dinners, where you pick up the wine and the dinner at the club, and then you get on Zoom with the vintner from Napa or from Italy. We could do that with whiskey or wine or any sort of spirit or beverage. And these have been wildly successful. And we continue to do these today. But creativity, as you can imagine, just continues. So why not take those spin bikes out of the gym and put it up to a bar outside so you can spin and drink all at the same time? Or why not use those fitness, that area where the kids' playground is for fitness activities outside, or family dance parties using Zoom. So it's been fun to see all the things that we've been doing from a club standpoint. It hasn't changed. It continues on. We have a club in Charlotte that every week they have a milkshake that they come out with. I can't even imagine eating that milkshake. But you can imagine it's great comfort food. We all need comfort food. And can you imagine your kids every week want to go to the club to have a meal and to see what the milkshake of the week is going to be? Absolutely. We've done trunk shows in our clubs to bring in products. This one in the top right is jewelry. And we've done that with other bespoke clothes and things like that. As it gets colder, here's University Club of Chicago with their rooftop dining. So they're using temporary igloos and keeping that dining in a heated environment so you can still be outdoors and separate. So creativity continues on, and it has been exceptional run. Clubs have, for a large part, we are still down on business related to weddings and banquets and things like that. But we have been resilient, and to a large part, our business is down maybe 10 or 15%. And for some clubs, they have been up, tremendous amount because of how they've served their members during this. So what have we learned from this, and how does it position our members in clubs? So first of all, I think we all have seen that relationships are important. We miss being in person. We miss seeing each other. We're all tired of this Zoom, and we want to be together. And we feel that clubs have created that space where we can be together because you're with many of your close friends there. And so we offer that safe place in the member's mind. And just like everybody else, we have done all sorts of things to do cleaning and create that safe environment. Our members have become experts on contact tracing because it comes into the club on a regular basis where we have to contact trace. But we feel clubs are well positioned as members come out of this. Time is another thing that we all see as somewhat more precious because we're not able to do the things we want. And we see during the pandemic, our members have come into the clubs in droves. In fact, we are not designed to have all the members in the club at the same time because everybody is home. Excuse me. So that time that is so precious, we feel more and more people are going to keep that habit of spending time in their club. And then, we have been, so many of us have been working from home, and we expect that to continue in some form, even post-COVID. So we are finding that our clubs are evolving into creating more and more space for people to not just work from home, but work at their club, where they have food and friends around and things to make them more productive. Being outdoors is something that has been so critical during this COVID environment, and so many of our clubs have a component that's outdoors. So we are well positioned there to continue on. We are, as I stated in the beginning, that resort in your hometown, and we all need that space to get away and escape. And for clubs, we have provided that and will continue to provide it. And a lot of the creativity that you saw before will not go away. One of the keys is really the last one, and that is this using virtual and using online. Most of our members have always thought of the club as that facility. But what we realized through this is that the club isn't the facility, the club is the membership. And just like an association, we are the membership. And so many folks have connected and kept in contact with the club, even though they have gone to their summer homes or now in the winter, if people go to Florida or to the South. And so that virtual connection is that much more important as we go forward. And so for a club, it has created a whole new avenue for us to grow and serve our membership. So with that, while life gave us lemons, we decided to make lemonade out of it. And we truly believe that the value of club membership has increased as a result of the pandemic. We have not lost members, and it has been, a truly enlightening, exciting, scary, and pretty fantastic road that we've traveled over the past few months in the pandemic. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Dan.
Thank you, Jeff. Now you can see why a lot of us are envious. Great job. Thank you, Jeff. Todd, bring us into movies, please.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I would be envious of Jeff if I didn't work for the greatest industry on this. So I have that going for me. So the ICA, I'm with the Independent Cinema Alliance, and the ICA is a trade association that's dedicated to the empowerment of movie theaters, theater owners, operators across North America. Our members range from movie palaces on Main Street to regional exhibitors to operate coast to coast. There's not one definition to what an independent is, but if you feel that you're an independent, you're probably an independent. For us, for the ICA, you have to find some parameters as to what that means for an association of those. So currently, to be a member of the ICA, it's open to any independent who operates 500 screens or fewer and represents no more than 2% of the domestic box office, and is also not a publicly traded company or owned by a major content supplier. The ICA was established a few years ago, or the concept of it was established a few years ago, and it's been a dynamic process and a long road to get to where we are now. It was started by independents for independents, and its mission is to champion the importance of independent cinemas to a dynamic and vibrant motion picture industry. And it's really important. You know, if you are in the concessions industry, you know how great it is to work with these independent movie theater owners, and I'm fortunate that I get to do that on a daily basis. Membership in the ICA is company-wide. It offers operators benefits and opportunities designed to, or intended to level the playing field for independents. In a normal year, dues would be $150 per company, plus $25 per screen. And I don't know if the ICA has really had a long enough history to say that there is a normal year. Last year was its first real year up and running as an association and collecting dues. This year, right prior to us announcing our 2020 membership drive, is when the pandemic hit. And so it's been an interesting time to be working with the ICA board and its membership as we navigate the pandemic. And so being independents, the board knows how difficult the times are right now. So it has decided to waive membership fees until at least through the end of April. And this will be formally announced this week. So members who are out there who don't know if they're a member of the ICA, because honestly, we've been essentially just including any independent in our messages because it's just such an important time right now for them to be collaborating with their peers. But we're really trying to just find a path forward, because we want to get all of these movie theater owners together, because as they gather together, their voice grows and they can have more impact. And it's really important right now because with, you know, from Main Street to our nation's urban centers, these independent movie theaters are, you know, invigorating opportunity zones. They're revitalizing neighborhoods. They drive foot traffic to local businesses. They foster cultural vibrancy in their communities. And if they go away, in many of these communities, they won't come back. And so we're really working to try to make sure that the movie theater owners that are in business today stay that way. As an association, we focus on industry and public relations. The independent movie theaters are an important sector of the motion picture industry, generating billions of dollars in annual sales through box office, through concession sales. It's important for independents to have this representation. And so through strategic advocacy initiatives, we're looking to work with stakeholders in the industry and elsewhere to promote innovative pro-independent cinema solutions. And probably one of the more interesting aspects of the association is the Cinema Buying Alliance. And that's, if you're not familiar with it, the Buying Alliance is for members. It's you know, if you're a member of the ICA, you can take advantage of the Buying Alliance. It provides discounts on products and services. And what we do at the ICA is that we combine the strength and numbers of our membership to develop partnerships and programs that provide you national account pricing and rebates on seats, light bulbs, services, and more. And going on to, you know, who is our member? I've spoken a little bit about it, but as I mentioned, if you know an independent movie theater owner, you know that they have a deservedly strong reputation for overcoming adversity time and time again. That's true for any small business owner. It's especially true for movie theater owners. And this grit and tenacity and this perseverance is being tested like no other time as the coronavirus disrupts every cinema and community across the country. Before this crisis upended our industry, it was thriving. You know, whenever, you know, people like to be naysayers, they like to talk about how movie theaters are on the way out. The truth could not be more opposite of that. Last year, movie theaters generated roughly $15 to $16 billion in revenue through concessions and box office nationally. And it's unfortunate because while they can operate throughout most of the country due to the good work of NATO's regional associations working with state lawmakers to make sure that movie theaters could open, these state mandated capacity limitations and a lack of new movie releases are really insurmountable barriers to their recovery. And, you know, it's never mind that there's, you know, the prevailing research that's coming out right now shows that moviegoing is quite safe, especially compared to other out-of-home experiences. There's not been one COVID-19 outbreak traced to a cinema throughout the world for the entirety of the pandemic. And especially when you pair all of that with the cinema safe protocols developed by NATO, we're just really hoping that we can bridge this pandemic. And that's really the goal right now, is just to bridge it to the other side. Because once we get to the other side, movie theater owners are going to come back, and are going to come back very, very strong. But due to the pandemic, due to this crisis, roughly 96%, that's pretty accurate number, so we'll just say 96% of movie theaters have reported losses of 70% or more. And that's threatening the vast majority of the industry's 150,000 or more jobs. And that's not including all of the ancillary jobs that benefit from movie theaters, from the retailers to those who have jobs in movie production. But all of this said, if there's not help given to movie theater owners in Congress, we're looking, perhaps at 70% or more of the independent movie theaters going bankrupt, having to find new ways to exist, or simply having to turn off their projectors forever. And that's going to be happening in the weeks and months ahead. So as time, at this time, when so many small towns are in a state of economic crisis for reasons beyond the pandemic, for reasons that were inherent to these small towns prior to this crisis, movie theaters really needed now more than ever. That's why NATO is doing a great job pushing the $15 billion in grants for the SOS Act for independent venues. ICA is highly supportive of this effort. And we really need this COVID-19 relief package to pass to help these theaters bridge the pandemic to next year, when hopefully movies come back with a fierce revenge and bring record-breaking box office. But it's not going to happen right away. It's going to take time. And so that's why the stimulus and the SOS Act are going to be vital, critical lifelines to movie theater owners, so they can contribute to the nation's broader economic recovery, and continue creating employment for jobs, or creating employment for folks in communities where jobs can be scarce. And movie theaters are first-time they employ first-time workers who often make a career out of being in the movie theater industry. They are leaders in hiring our senior citizens and the disabled, and that's why movie theaters are so important, from being anchors in those communities to being economic engines to the people that they employ. It is vital that our lawmakers in Congress help make sure that they're here on the other side of this pandemic to bring back that shared cultural experience of going to the movie. Now, COVID-19 has not only had an effect on movie theater owners and operators, as I mentioned earlier, it's really had an effect on trade associations that serve this industry. And there are a lot of trade associations that serve this industry, from the regional associations to the art house convergence to NATO to the ICA. And since March, these associations representing the exhibition industry have had to cancel their conventions. They've had to shelve all of these conferences and trade shows. And it's a serious blow, not only because of the service that these events provide to the movie theater industry and all the stakeholders that serve it, but also because these conventions are, it's what funds the budgets of these associations. And so, hopefully the news of the vaccine this morning will portend new hope for our industry and for the conventions in 2021, because the thought of going 2 consecutive years without holding, our biggest revenue producing events is a frightening prospect. And you've heard it from all the other trade association executives today. So it's not only for the budget, but it's also just canceling out what we do as associations to move our mission and move our members forward. So fortunately, organizations like the ICA and the others that you've heard on this call do more than that. Well, they now do more than just organize meetings and expos. We organize virtual meetings. And if there's one word, and I'm sorry, I've heard it several times today, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but if there's one word I will print out onto a piece of paper and ritually burn on the other side of this pandemic, is the word pivot. And but for the time being, it's unfortunately one of the most appropriate words that fits our current reality. That's why you hear it so often. And so that's what the ICA has done. We've pivoted. In addition to advocating for our members and developing a robust buying group and policies that push their business forward, we're a network of peers who connect and help each other with their problems of the day, and there are a lot of those problems today. So while conventions and trade shows provide an easy way to annually connect and network in person, really what I see as the pandemic's truly only valuable result is the development of this way that we're virtually connecting everybody now. We're doing it right now. And you've seen it through NAC's reopening conference calls, which have been so valuable to the concessions industry. And at ICA, we started what we call ICA Live, which was initially happening every week, and then realized maybe there's a saturation level of all these virtual events. So now we've gone to an every other week. And these provide, the ICA Live provides really a lot of great networking opportunities. It provides a roadmap where there's actually obviously really no road that we're on right now, but it provides the semblance of a roadmap to weather this pandemic. And I don't see these virtual meetings going away. I think that the in-person, we're all hurting to have that personal connection. You know, movie theater owners more than anybody knows how valuable having that personal connection in a space is to creating shared experiences. And so I look forward to that day, and hopefully it's around the corner. But yes, these virtual meetings are going to continue, and I think it's going to be an important part of our industries going forward. I know that I've worked with theater owners of Mid-America for years now, working with the ICA, and I've gotten to see members who I've talked with on the phone, but I never knew actually what they looked like because they didn't come to the conventions or whatever. So I've really made this fantastic connection, and especially at the ICA, and I've only been there, not even a year, I guess coming up on a year this month. And it's a national association. We're getting new members every day that I've known their names, I've known the companies, but I've never had a chance to interact with them until now. And that's the great thing about all this virtual Zoom meetings. That's the good thing about it. But through these ICA Live calls, we've really gotten back to that grit and tenacity that I mentioned earlier that independents are known for. And they're pioneering new methods of reaching out to their moviegoers through fundraisers, through curbside popcorn sales, through virtual cinema delivered to the home that supports local movie theaters, to pop-up drive-ins. And the ICA Live calls have been, I think, a pretty integral part of connecting all of these ideas together, just as NAC's calls accomplished throughout most of this pandemic. And so that's where we are as an association at the ICA. We're supportive of the great work that NATO and the NATO regional associations are doing to give the opportunity for movie theaters to open if they see fit, and then just to provide educational opportunities and network opportunities. And with that, I'll conclude my talk and welcome any questions from the audience.
Well, thank you, Todd. We do have one question. Actually, this is for you, Jeff. How do your clubs handle those club members unable to pay dues at the moment, but will come back once their circumstances change?
Yeah, it's a great question, and dues are a lifeblood of a club. We have not, and understand, I'll speak averages. On average, we have not seen a lot of loss in our membership. Those core members that are full members that have access to the full club have been paying dues, and that has not been a problem because they want to support the staff and support that they're a part owner of. Where we've seen some loss in membership is those members that have a lower level access to the club that may only use it for dining, or may only those social members. But those clubs that have had members that have had difficulties paying dues, to a large part, there's been conversations with those members of, do you want to stay a member a long term, and how can we keep you as a member a long term? And if that means payment plan or delay in dues payments, clubs have done what they've had to do to help those members in need at this point in time.
Well, let me say in parting that, frankly, what we've seen here today is a true reason why associations exist. I've always mentioned in all my years in association work that there is only one way of working together legally, and that's those of us who are around this virtual table today, working with our members to better society, and obviously our members as well. And if anything's come out of this lousy virus, it's frankly us working together. And I'm thankful that all of you were able to join us today. It's been a pleasure working with all of you, and hopefully 2021 will be better for all of us and all of our members. On that note, Chris, I know you have some parting words, and thank you all again for being with us.
I do have some parting words. Okay, just want to remind, and again, thanks to the panel today. Fabulous session and great way to start off Retreat Week, our inaugural Retreat Week. Just want to remind everybody on the call that their one link gets you into all of our educational sessions and our annual meeting, except for the Wednesday Copper Cane wine tasting. That is a separate link. You can go to naconline.org. And go to our Retreat Week page for that link, and we will be sending out a invitation to all of our registries as well. Do want you to go to that Retreat Week page on naconline.org, because we've got some other things in addition to these educational sessions, such as we're doing a virtual fun run and walk. And so that's the first 30 people who get out for a run or a walk this week, take a picture of yourself, send that to us via one of our social media channels, or send one to info@naconline.org. And the first 30 selfies will get a beach towel courtesy of Promotion in Motion. Some other reminders. We also on our website on the Retreat Week page have some great venue tours. So grateful to members to go ahead and take the time to send us some venue tours, because it's always been such a valuable part of our NAC Expo. And so we wanted to make sure we did that again. There's a great walkthrough of the recently renovated lacrosse center in La Crosse, Wisconsin. You're going to want to take a look at that. There's a very nice highlight tour of Legends at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Fort Worth. And I think we're going to be, if everything goes well, we're going to be in Dallas, Fort Worth at the 2021 Expo. So maybe a little bit of a preview there. There's a very unique virtual walk around of the Tivoli Theater and Classic Cinemas in Chicago. You're going to want to take a look at that. And then there's a great sizzle reel from the Amway Center in Orlando. And we will be the 2022 Expo. Yes, 2022 Expo will be in Orlando. So preview of Orlando for us. Plus, there's a bonus feature section on the website. We just debuted episode 3 of Laboring with a Multi-Generational Workforce. It's a podcast series. And the first 2 episodes are there as well. And we've had over 260 listens to our podcast. So we're finding an audience there. And now episode 3 is out just last week. So check that out. And then also earlier in the year, Dan did a very nice webinar on polishing up your resume in your job hunt for those of you who are unfortunately displaced. And that recording is also on the Retreat Week page on naconline.org. With that being said,
okay, Chris,
the most important part of the day. And I will let people know we did a random drawing prior to the call. And here are today's door prizes. We'll be having 5 or 6 door prizes for every session. Thank you so much, NAC members and our supplier members, for donating all these great prizes. It's really a great list. But first up, a year's supply of peanut M&Ms courtesy of Mars Wrigley. And that's going to go to Bill LeClaire of National Amusements. And Bill is also our Burt Nathan Award winner. We're going to honor him on Friday. A $100 gift card courtesy of Proctor Companies. I think that's a DoorDash gift card. And that's going to go to Chris Van Snellenberg of Gallery Theaters. And then we have 2 stay-at-home pretzel kits courtesy of Ben Soft Pretzels. And that's going to go to Sherry Janofsky of Classic Cinemas. We also have a Bose SoundLink color Bluetooth speaker courtesy of Vistar. And that's going to go to Adam Sachs of Ultrastar Multitainment. And then finally, 1908 Candy has contributed some candy to us. And that's going to go to Juan Cardenas of Cinemark. So great prizes there. We'll be in touch with you. We will give your contact information to those companies and they will ship to you directly. But Dan, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Any parting words?
Well, thank you for being with us. Hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow. 2 exciting sessions. And until then, take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.